Hello and welcome. In this tutorial, I'm going to be giving you just a few tips and guidelines for preparing an Adobe Illustrator file for use with the laser cutter. So most things work as normal in Illustrator when you're planning to laser cut your file, but there are a couple of things that we do special for that type of project to make things go smoothly. So to start off, when you're creating a new document in Illustrator, it's really helpful to set your artboard size based on the material you're going to be cutting from. So really commonly that's going to be 30 by 30 centimeters, which is the size of a lot of the wood and acrylic we stock in the lab. But you can change your units by clicking here, and you either want to use inches or centimeters depending on your knowledge of what size material you're using. If you're using an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper, that's a standard size printer paper, you would use inches. If you're measuring something in centimeters, you can use centimeters. It's really easy to convert if you change your mind later. But let's say we're working on a 30 by 30 centimeter square board. We're going to type in our width and height and select the correct unit. Just make sure we're set to CMYK color, and then we can hit create. So that's going to create this blank sort of canvas for us. And just like any other time we're using Illustrator, we can use a combination of elements we find online, elements we create out of simple shapes using the rectangle and ellipse and polygon tool, lines and text and that type of thing. But if we want to, often, when we're laser cutting things, we want to do two types of operations. So sometimes we want to cut things out where we actually want the laser cutter to go and cut maybe a rectangle out of a piece of wood and maybe with rounded edges or something. And then sometimes we want to engrave. So we might say like my name. So maybe we're making like a little name tag on the laser cutter, and we've decided on some dimensions. We've gone into properties and said, I want my name tag to be 12 centimeters by 8 centimeters. And then we've sized our text to fit within it. This looks great with a couple of exceptions, right? How does the laser know to cut this black line but only engrave these letters? Well, the convention we normally take is anything that you want to cut on the laser cutter should be in black. Anything you want to engrave on the laser cutter should appear in black. Anything you want to cut should have a red stroke. The fill doesn't matter when you're cutting something, so this happens to have a white fill. Even if it had a green fill, we would still really not matter so much. So we usually just create red, black, and white images where what we want engraved into the surface of a material is going to be black, and then lines we want to cut all the way through that material are going to show up in red. You can use your centering tools to get these lined up. So again, engraving in black, and you can take basically any photo, whether it's vectorized or not, and engrave it. But when it comes to cutting, the laser actually needs a path or a stroke to follow, and we do that in red. The reason we use black for engraving is because it gives us a very consistent engraving. When we use a colorful image, it gets converted to grayscale, and each color based on its value will be closer or further from black, and so they get engraved slightly differently. So it's really nice just to size things as you want them within your artboard. You can lay them out. If you're going to do multiple of something, it really helps us save material if you can put them nice and close together in a way that's lined up, so that the rest of this theoretical board is still usable for other projects. And then red lines for cutting, black lines for engraving. Another note is most of us are creating our files on MacBooks, which have their own set of fonts, and then we're laser cutting them from a Windows machine, which has a slightly different set of fonts with some overlap. But if you're ever really excited about a specific font, like let's say I was just really into this Myriad Pro regular font, and I want to make sure it doesn't have to get changed when I go to the Windows machine, when I've finalized the size, shape, and everything about my text, I can hit create outlines, and it will take it so that it's no longer editable text, but instead it's actually a shape that I could go and manipulate. But the point of making it a shape is that we don't run into the issue where we pull this up on a Windows machine and it says like, whoops, I don't have that font. What font should we replace it with? Once you use create outlines, you've got that shape locked in as a shape itself, and so you're not going to have the issue. You might want to hit release, and maybe not release. Anyway, those are just a Couple quick tips for laser cutting. To sum it up, right, we create an artboard of the correct units and dimensions based on the material we're cutting out of. We use black for engraving, we use red strokes for cutting, and then if we have text that we want to ensure doesn't get messed up in the translation from Mac to Windows, we click on that text and then hit create outlines down here. So I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.